All right, ladies and gentlemen, as each and every one of us gets ready to hear from a sporting legend that is coming and joining us very, very soon on this stage. I like that. I like that little sound check that our audience is already doing. You guys want to make a little more noise? Yeah? Perfect. I know you're now in the room all charged up and charging his way and making us and moderating his way through this session. Please, let's welcome onto our stage Indian sports journalist, sports historian and writer. Put your hands together for Mr. Boria Majumdar.
Good afternoon. We are talking about adaptability and change. 2001, India was down and out against Australia. 16 wins on the trot for Australia. Someone who's very soft-spoken, someone who I know for 32 years as captain of India, decides to change his persona, adapt his persona to become a very different man. And then 2 test matches which create history, 2-1 for India, and all of Indian cricket's trajectory is changed. As captain of India, he changed us. As president of the board, the WPL was conceived. As show host, he's par excellence. Put your hands together for one of the greatest, the god of offside, dear friend, Sourav Ganguly. Welcome. Thank you. Let's start with 2001.
First, just let me say thank you to all of you. Thank you.
For once, Sourav Ganguly was actually sitting backstage for 1 hour. It's the other side. He made Steve Waugh wait, you made him wait. Not a bad start. Good one. But 2001, you are so soft-spoken. I have known you for 32 years. How did you change your persona for Steve Waugh and the Australians? How did you adapt? That's the theme.
Cricket is so important part of my life, and I say is because it still is. And although I don't play for the country anymore, I've finished playing. It's still the most important thing in my life. And in 2001, when I first became captain, I became captain in 2000. So when we played Australia in 2001, I realized that that's the only way you could beat them, because they were such a strong team in that era. Probably the best team I have seen since the West Indies of 1970s, and led by Steve Waugh, not just great players, but players who just wanted to win. And for us, it was a very important phase of our cricketing careers. We were young, the likes of Rahul, Sachin, VVS, myself, Anil. We were young boys who were wanting to take Indian cricket to a different level. As you rightfully said, I am a completely different person off the field. Quiet, very introvert, and like staying behind the scenes. But somehow cricket got me going. The wanting to win, wanting to play for India, wanting to succeed, the competition around me, because I knew that if I had to deliver to play for India, because there's so many good players in our country. It was even then, it's now, and it's going to be in the future. So whoever gets this job, whoever gets into this hot seat, and I was there for 6 years. 6 years of my career in that hot seat. You have to compete and you have to win. So from that point of view, the push, the pressure, the expectations were unimaginable. And after being beaten in the first test in Bombay, for my own self to continue as captain of India, I had to change things around. And fortunately, with some great players, with some outstanding cricket in the next 2 test matches, the Lakshman and Dravid innings in Calcutta, probably the best test innings I've seen in my life. And then Chennai, where we went on to beat them in the 3rd test, was something very, very special. I was captain for a long period, but I don't think I've played a better test series than that one in 2001.
I asked this question for a reason. It's actually 25 years next year. The series that changed Indian cricket, so Goa Fest, the reason I asked was it's the 25th anniversary that has started. And that adaptability that Sourav Ganguly brought into Indian cricket transformed it for all times to come. But let's make this more meaningful. One is to have a conversation. One is to go beyond and transcend that conversation and leave an imprint and a legacy. All of us have faced adversity. In Saurav's life, it's not one-way curve. It's layers of gray, shades of gray. When you were dropped, unfairly dropped because you were one of the better players of ODI cricket, white ball cricket, and yet you were dropped from the team. And I remember you running some 25 laps of the Eden Gardens. You had to adapt from being captain to being nobody to being dropped, and yet you made a comeback against South Africa. Can you tell us about the adaptability against adversity, please?
And I thought he'll ask me some good questions to start with because before I got dropped, I had 10 years of international career, 6 years as captain. So I thought he being a friend, will ask about adversities later half, because I made my debut in 1996 and then got dropped in 2006 for 6 months and then came back and played again for another 4 or 5 years. So having asked me that question, I think adversities are for everyone's in life. There is no one in this room who will go through ups and downs, who will go through tough and bad times. I know there are a lot of people from the advertising world in this fest. It's the Goa Advertising Fest, and you deal with corporates, you deal with your own careers, and ups and downs are a very important part of careers because the downs actually teach you how good the ups are, and also it teaches you a lot of good things. For me, I've played cricket for so long, and I went to a good school in Calcutta, the St. Xavier's College, but nothing taught me better than sport, because sport is the best leveler, and it keeps you grounded, because after you get a test match 100 or a one-day 100, in our days, there was no T20 cricket. One-day 100, the next innings you have to start from zero. So there is nothing you carry forward, and adversities actually make you a better person. So it's important for an individual to know what adversities is, what going down is, because then you will cherish and hold on and work harder when you go up. And in 2006, I got dropped, and obviously it was not for cricketing reasons. From 1996 to 2006, the curve was only up. Playing with some great players, and I got dropped from one-day cricket, where the only person who had scored more runs in the world was Sachin, and by marginally in one-day cricket in those 10 years. So to be dropped from the one-day side was something very hard to digest. I did keep on playing test matches after that, even when I was left out for a little. So it was tough, it was hard, but deep inside I knew that I still had the ability in me to score runs. So that kept me going. My father, who was, and you've known him for so long, my father, who was an ardent cricket supporter, like all our fathers, you look at Dravid's father, Sachin's father, or even the modern day players, the parents, when their kids play, when their children play, it's as if their lives on the balance. And that's how my father was when I was playing for India. Nothing mattered to him other than me playing cricket. And I remember one Sunday he came and told me, I was already left out for 3 or 4 months, and he said, it might be difficult for you to come back and play. And every time India won, because India were playing at home, and every time India won, his discussions with me would be, so it's getting even more difficult. I used to just listen because, I know as a dad, he would ask me these questions because I knew Indian cricket a bit more than he did. And I was waiting for an overseas tour. So, and I told him, it's tough, but let's see. For 10 years, I've seen the graph go up. I was 33 then. I was 33 years old, and from 23 to 33, the world was at my feet, and I said, let's see what happens. The week went, India were playing Sri Lanka then, and India were beating them. It was a 7-match series, and India won 6-1. So the next week, he comes up to me and says, it's even getting tougher. And there's to be headlines in the newspaper that every time India won a series, it would say, India wins a series, and Ganguly's comeback becomes harder. So as it goes, then I told him one day, I said, listen, I told my dad, and it's something which all of you must keep it in your mind as you go ahead. There are a lot of senior people here in this room, also much older than me. I said, Dad, I've got 2 choices. I'm 33 years old. Either I give up because that time my numbers as captain of India were far, far beyond everybody. I said, either I give up saying that I've done enough, captain of India for more than 200 games, winning matches, winning away, winning in Pakistan for the first time ever, going to Australia, 1-1 in Australia. Nobody did that in 25 years. Beating Pakistan, beating Australia here, going to England and winning. So I said, I've got two choices. Either I think this is fine and put my feet up and wait for my opportunity, but I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to give it a try because, in life, for everyone's career, you have careers in the advertising world, life will go beyond. Even when you're 50, you become important, you can grow, you can become better. At 60, you can even become better. But for an athlete, but for a sportsman, it stops after a while. I said, I'll get to 40, 5-6 years time. If I don't play for India, it's fine. It's fine because it's not an individual sport, it's a team sport, you get selected. But I don't want to get to the age of 40 and think that when the chips were down, I didn't try enough.
See, that was the question. That is
so
exactly
let me finish.
why.
Before you ask me the question, let me finish. So I told my dad that there's no guarantee. I may not come back because, India has some great players. Once you go down the ladder, it's so hard to get back up at the ladder. But I knew what was in store for me or what was different for me than the others was success. I have been a successful player for 10 years. And I will not go out without a chance. And I kept training, as you said, you've seen me run 20 laps of Eden Gardens, and a lot of it was with anger.
Yes.
And there are days when I would finish 10 laps and I would just keep running because my mind wasn't in the running. My mind was angry. And I used to keep running, and then I realized, I've run so much. And then I would go home. Then 6 months later, India went to South Africa.
I'll stop you there because that's the question. I mean, see, one thing is anger, one thing is what he's talking about, success, and to have the 10 years with him and all of that. But it's a very different thing to go to South Africa. Because India was going to South Africa and it's a bowling lineup with the Dale Steins, the Nanty Haywards, the Alan Donalds, the Sean Pollocks of the world, the very best in the world in South Africa, and he was actually going to Potchefstroom from where directly into the cricket ground in a matter of hours. So it's not about acclimatization. He did not have the time to acclimatize. The coach was against him. So were you not scared? And that's the kind of adaptability that we talk about. We are faced with challenges. Each of these people are successful. They are faced with challenges. Talk to me about that South African experience. Weren't you not scared?
I was not scared because my record as captain was better than my coach's. Yeah, so.
But beautiful.
So I wasn't scared. And before that, I have been to South Africa many times. And I'll tell you a small story, and I pardon myself for all this, but since you've asked me, and there are a lot of careers in this room, he's still my friend, and he was a very good photographer. He's covered me all around the world playing cricket. He's the most notorious photographer you will see. He was short, and he would go through armpits and on the sides and get into the ground. So I got selected for South Africa, and he called me. He was someone who had genuine feelings for me. And he called me up and said, why South Africa? India going to South Africa, they'll come back, they'll lose the test series, then West Indies here, they'll bring you back and you play on good flat pitches in India, score runs and you're back again. So I listened to him. I listened to him because he was a friend and he was genuinely concerned. So after listening to him for 15-20 minutes, I said, Shumon, I want to go to South Africa. He said, why? The green pitches, fast wickets, the best fast bowling attack in the world, not the South Africa you see these days. What happens if you don't score runs? I said, I've never thought that way in my life. What happened if I didn't score runs in my first test at Lord's? I would have never come this way. So when I went to Lord's in 1996 and got 100 on debut at Lord's in my first test, the pressure on me at that time was 100 times more than now, because now I'm someone who's been all around the world, almost close to 80 odd test matches for India, 300 one-days for India, captain for 200 matches. So why not? And I told him one thing, and I say that for all of you. My good friend Dravid was captain. I said, you know, I'm not a young player anymore where people will give me that much time to prove myself. You know, I've been around for such a long period of time. I said, I want to go to South Africa because if I score runs in South Africa, my coach, my captain, I don't know my coach, but my captain, my selectors will have tremendous faith in me, saying that, you know, when it was quick, when it was fast, when it was difficult, he stood up and scored runs. And that is going to take me for the next 4 or 5 years, both personally as a player and what my team and my selectors thought about me. I said, if I don't go to South Africa, I'll still be someone at that age unproved on tough conditions. So I said, I need to go to South Africa if I want to play for another 4 or 5 years, and I wanted to play for another 4 or 5 years. Captaincy was not in my head because I knew I'll never be captain again, and I didn't want to be captain again also, but I wanted to play for India. I went to South Africa. I remember going to Potchefstroom, as you said, Boria. I landed and I went straight to the ground. As usual, the coach said, I need him straight from the flight to practice. You know, normally they give you a day to recover, jet lag, there's nothing. And as I landed, he said, put your pads on. So I said, put my pads on, and I went into the nets, and they gave the new ball to the fast bowlers. I said, do it. So I practiced, I did well. I went back, and Potchefstroom, India was 17 for 5. You know, against Moni Morkel on a green pitch, we lost the toss, and we were 17 for 5, and I got 90. 90 on the ground.
And I've seen this guy play all his life. He's 2 years my senior in St. Xavier's College. And I've seen him play all his life. He's been an inspiration.
No, I'll just complete the...
That 50 also.
I'll just complete the story.
We need to talk about the 50,
we will.
yes.
I finished the series with the most number of runs. Most number of runs in South Africa, and as I sat in the corner in the dressing room after 3 test matches, I really felt good. And the first thing, because India were playing, and I hadn't played one-day cricket for almost 8 months, and India were playing the West Indies in a week's time. We would land in India, go home for a day, and meet up in Nagpur for the 1 days. And 1 day was my strength. And as I sat in the corner, packing my bags and finishing the end of the series, I see the captain come and tell me that we're playing West Indies in a week's time and you'll be opening. So I got my 1 day position back also. So for all of you here, all of you will be put in difficult situations in life. This fellow has gone through a tougher situation in his life, and you will all go through it. You will go through it in your life. There'll be someone who'll think at the age, for us it's a little younger, but for a lot of you who have gray hairs in this room, your boss might think your time is done. Your boss might think that the young boy is better than you. It happens to everyone. The young boy has more energy, the young boy has a more future, he's someone who you should invest on, and he's someone who's going to take your brand forward. It doesn't work that way. If you believe in yourself, and if you're ready to bite the bullet, if you're ready to go the hard yards, you'll still be as good. You know, if you stop believing that you will not be able to do it, the world might believe in you, but you'll not be able to do it. And I say that to everyone, that the only thing cricket gave me in my life, obviously name, fame, accolades, my dream of playing for the country as a 14-year-old, if somebody would have said, you along with Tendulkar and Dravid will be the all-time 5-run getters for India, I said, you must be joking. But that's what the sport gave me. But most importantly, what sport gave me was that every time you asked me to do something, sometimes I did things which were not in sport, which were beyond sport. My first thing my mind said, I'll do it.
And that's the point, right? I mean, one thing is a tour game. Think about it. A test match in South Africa, India down some 83 odd for 5. He walks in. It's not about 100. And that's what the beauty of test cricket is all about. And he scores a 51 not out against South Africa. When I see that, you remember the Barack Obama words, yes we can? Those three words resonate and reverberate and tell me that as Indians you can, despite adversity, you can adapt, you can change, you can appropriate, you can make challenges work in your favor. And Sourav Ganguly was back in South Africa.
And
that's the story.
And most importantly, apart from me being back, India won the test.
India won that test match.
Before that,
India won that test.
6 one-days they played, they lost all 6 to South Africa. And then the test match came in and we beat them in Johannesburg.
You said I was starting with adversity when you were 10 years older in cricket. But let me just take you back then. 1996, you mentioned Lords. You were written off. When you were picked, people said, quota. People said, Mr. Dalmia. People said X. People said Y. And you were not even a proven commodity, and we were starting to doubt you. Every time someone has doubted you, you've broken that bar. Whether it's 1996, whether it's South Africa, whether it's Australia as captain, whether it's 2001, how? How did you keep adapting and innovating and keep sort of breaking barriers?
There are 2 parts to it. One is when you're a young boy, which I was in 1996, 22-year-old, you don't know anything. You're a young, raw talent. And it's the same thing with the current young players at the moment. They're just young, raw talent. Secondly, when I went to England in 1996, media was not as strong as this. There was no WhatsApp, there was no internet, there was no, before anything happened, even if today Virat Kohli sneezes, before he completes, it's on my phone. That Virat Kohli has sneezed 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. He might be counting. Did I do it 5 times? But Ganguly knows, Boria knows, you know, other know, everybody knows that Virat Kohli has done something. But when I started my career in 96, ये सब कुछ था ही नहीं. So, as you said, that I was talked about somebody who didn't deserve a place, somebody who was not fit to be a batsman in that high-class Indian batting lineup. I did not know anything. I only came to know when I came back home and I picked up a Sports Star. Sports Star was probably and still is the most important sports magazine then, and I picked up the Sports Star and I saw my photograph on the front cover page of the magazine. He said, quota player. I looked at it and I said, thank God I saw it after I've done my 200s. If I would have seen this before my 200s, I would not have got runs because I would have lost my faith in myself. So, I'm telling you, in 1996, I played my first test at Lords and they asked me to bat at number 3. The mindset I was then, I have never been in the next 400 games I played for India. I had no fear. Every ball I played was new to me, a new experience, was a success. I batted for 7 hours to get a test match 100. And it changed my life. But it's the mindset which actually saw me through during that period. It was a young kid with no expectations, with very rare knowledge of the game. Obviously, as I kept playing more, I understood the game a lot more, but my mindset was never the same. I used to go to test matches with fear. I used to go to one-day matches with less confidence at times in those next 10 years. Although I did get runs, I managed to battle that period of lack of confidence. But I did. I've seen the great man play with me. I've seen him go through sleepless nights before matches.
When I see your career about adaptability and being able to sort of transform yourself, whether it's Lords, whether it's 96, whether it's 2001, whether it's 2003-04, even recently, the IPL comebacks, I can see you react to pressure, deal with pressure, and circumvent or overcome pressure and prove kind of a point. But what happens with this Indian team? Why is it? You were telling me, we make the final. A lot of these people, they're corporate honchos. They've dealt with pressure their lives. What is it about pressure that we are not able to adapt to pressure with this current team? Another World Cup is starting. Everybody wants India to win. Each of us bleed blue. But for some reason, we are not able to adapt to pressure and give our best. What's the problem?
There are 2 parts to your question, Boria, and I'll answer 2 parts. First is, when you asked about me, that what keeps you going, your career, your IPL, Delhi Capitals, it's one word, faith. Faith in myself, that I'll turn this around. And for all of you here in this room, you must remember one thing, that circumstances around you will change. Situation around you will change. demands around you will change. Your bosses around you will change, who'll ask you funny things to do, as I encountered a coach in 2005. And I'm sure in your life you will encounter, and it's a fact, encounter people who will probably be very tough with you. But what doesn't change for you and what actually takes you beyond everything is your faith and belief. It's a very small word, it's a very simple word, but it has enormous power. You know, all throughout that period, I would tell myself, कि जो भी हो जाए, मुझे एक bat दे दो, I'll score runs. That was very important. Now you're coming to your second question. Coming to your second question is India. You know, I know we've not been winning World Cups. We're getting to the finals. We got to the final this time in 2023. Then the Champions Trophy in 2017, we lost the finals. In the 2019 World Cup, we were outstanding and lost to New Zealand in the semi-finals. I don't think that's got to do with pressure. It's about one bad game. And I think sometimes in a country like ours, there's so much expectation. You know, I remember when I was captain and we were playing Pakistan, and this is a true story. In 2003, I wasn't scoring runs. I had a poor toe. My record against Pakistan is normally good. And I wasn't scoring runs that series. So I told John, who was a very dear friend of mine and coach, I said, John, after 2 test matches, can I go home? I just need a break. I'll meet my family and come back. He said, yeah, go. So I landed in Calcutta, and my driver came to pick me up, and we were driving through the streets in Calcutta. So he looked into the mirror and asked me, Dada, are you training? I said, yeah, I've been training. No, your running between the wickets has become slow. So that's what your chef, your driver, will tell you when you don't play well in India. So the expectations are enormous. And I think when you see this Indian team, now they're in America and West Indies, and I keep saying that they'll be one of the favorites for the tournament. And as you said, as they lost the World Cup final, sometimes you need to get away from it. You know, sometimes we in India, and I tell that to everyone, we in India, when India is playing a World Cup final, there's Rohit Sharma's wife. When I look at her on the screen, I told her one day, I said, Rohit, please tell your wife to relax. She might die on the cricket field one day, watching you bat. She's under so much pressure. You know, when you look at Shubman Gill's dad, when you look at Virat's wife, you know, it seems that, you know, there is a bomb to be burst in that, in the stands and in the dressing room. So I think Indian cricket needs to go the other way. The players need to go the other way and relax for a big final. You know, in the 2023 World Cup in India, they were the best team in the competition. You know, Rohit, Virat, you take the bowling, Mohammad Shami, Bumrah, you know, they just smashed everyone till they lost to the final. And you know, sometimes it's important that when you get to the big game, when you get to the final, you need to turn the cycle the other way around. You know, get the nerves to be down, you know, relax a bit more, and then go and play, because that's where the mindset is very, very important. And Dravid's the coach, he's a champion, Rahul Dravid, and I speak to him a number of times, and I thought of writing to him, you know, saying that, you know, Jam, we call him Jam. I said, you relax a bit and don't worry about winning tournament. Just go and play and see what happens. And I think that mindset you have to bring in. And India needs to do that, needs to play every game, go to the next one, and then see what happens in the final. Otherwise, I don't see any reason why such quality players keep going the other way when it comes to big finals.
Sourav is brand ambassador to a number of brands, and if you go to Kolkata, in fact from my house where I live in North Kolkata, I keep joking with him that I go to the next traffic light, there are 271 hoardings, 171 of them will have Sourav Ganguly's face. Okay, and that's a fact.
And my next question is, who has the rest 100?
So there was this marathon going on, and this is a true story. There was a marathon going on, and there's this guy who's going in front, and people are running, and Sourav is like waving them. So you must understand this. So they're going and waving them, and this guy, so everyone's turning sort of towards Sourav and taking photographs. So he also is doing that, right? He's turning his phone, taking selfies with the crowd, and the crowd is going. So all of a sudden, one of the organizers come and gives him a selfie stick, a tall selfie stick, and can you take one? So he does this, and he's trying to take a photograph. And by doing that, he actually, with the selfie stick, hits a guy. He hits a guy on the head. True story. I don't know if he remembers. Hits a guy on the head, and all of us are worried. It's tuck. There's a sound, and he's hit the guy on the head, and the guy's like, boom. And we are like, do we do something? Do we take him to the doctor? Do we take him to the hospital? Believe me, he looked at him, he touched here, and he did this. I said, do you need something? He said, no, God has touched it, and he walked away. You know, and for me, it was surreal. Final question, how do you react to being Sourav Ganguly or adapt to being Sourav Ganguly with the status of God in Bengal?
I just be normal. So I don't think I have that status in Bengal. He's getting confused with Sachin and Virat. So it's not.
No, I'm not.
It's not Sourav Ganguly. So, you know, for me, that's my home. That's where I live. People have seen me grow up, and I get heaps of advices. And there are some Bengalis here. When I say heaps of advices, they'll know. When you meet an elderly gentleman, he'll say, "Baba, bhalo acho? Tumi bhalo kore khawa dawa korcho? Ekdom mathata bodo korbe na." So I face that every time, and and some of them can relate to what I'm saying. You know, I have a mom at home. You know, I had kept a bed for a year, and I used to like it. So every time I would wake up and have tea with her, the first thing she would tell me, "You've become big now. You don't even listen to your mother. You don't cut your bed. It's just a bed." And so I go through that in Calcutta. So in Calcutta, it seems that everybody knows Sourav Ganguly. Everybody has an opinion on Sourav Ganguly. And all what Sourav Ganguly needs to do and say, yes, thank you, you're right. And that's what I do.
So on that note, Sourav Ganguly's biggest problem is being Sourav Ganguly. But ladies and gentlemen, 1996, 200s on the trot, Lords and England. Thereafter, 2001 against Australia in that particular series. 8 wins on the trot, 2003 World Cup. After what happened in New Zealand, 2004 Australia, taking on Steve Moore's side and transforming Indian cricket for all times to come. What we see today, the seeds were sown then, the adaptability started then. Thank you, Goa Fest, for having us. Put your hands together for Sourav Ganguly.
Thank you.